Alright, the first reveals of set 3 is here with Dokovan's stream with Dimensional Robo Ride Line, or Daiyusha. So let's begin. And unfortunately, no Great Daiyusha, so no gattai. But first, let's start off with a card of the day with a double rare of Stormflower Dragon, which is a grade 2 with taking power and skills. Auto, when discarded from hand during your turn, if your Vanguard is grade 2 or greater, costs Soul Blast 1, call this card to rearguard. But if it was called during battle, it cannot attack during the turn. Basically to prevent discard combo engines for multi-attack, but this is overall pretty decent for those discard heavy decks, just so you could get some resources back. And you can always discard this during the ride deck as well. In which we go to the second skill where count rearguard. If an order card was put to drops on this card gets the boost ability. Not too bad, but this does depend on the deck. Of course, Zorga can easily use this second skill. First skill is a maybe, but once again, it just depends on the deck. And now we go to the Dimension Robo Ride line. We start off with Daiyusha. This is going to be an important starter, so you better run this as your starter. In which we go to the grade 1 with AK power, Dimensional Robo Divinez, which has the skill of auto when placed on Vanguard. Search your deck for one base card, reveal it, and add it to your hand. Once again, grade 1 that searches up your set order. In this case, it's a base card. Funny enough, B heroes also use base, meaning that you can actually just use this with B heroes in a way. Pretty cool choice right there, I have to say. But the second skill is auto when placed on rearguard from soul by a card ability, aka it's going to be from your base, and I mean the new one. If you have at least a grade 3 Daiyusha, all your Vanguard systems 5 power in the end of turn. As a little spoiler, the idea is that you're going to be using your base to get your Dimension Robo parts and sort of do the gattai to regular Daiyusha for some reason, not Great Daiyusha, and then call your Dimension Robo parts from Soul to give your Dimension Robo's power. Mainly Daiyusha, because of course the idea of these being mechs, each link up parts will basically give each other power. But anyway, moving on to the grade 2 with 10k power, Dimensional Robo Dai Dragon, which is the shield of Daiyusha, just remember that, has a skill of auto when rolled upon by grade 3 Daiyusha. You may call this to rearguard, in which it will trigger the second skill where auto when placed on rearguard from soul by card ability, even from its first skill. If you have at least a grade 3 Daiyusha, into the end of your opponent's next turn, this card gets this ability and 5k power. And the ability is auto rearguard. When your Vanguard attacks, cost retire this unit, choose one of your Vanguards, it gives us 15k power at the end of that battle. Once again, surging Daiyusha with power. Kind of like the idea of throwing away his defense for full-on offense. But before we go to Daiyusha himself, let's go to the new set order, Super Dimensional Fortress Dai Base. Remember, this is a base, so you can actually interact with this with B heroes. But anyway, it's a grade 0, so you can actually just use this right off the bat from your grade 1 search with the skill Act Order Zone. If your Vanguard is Dimensional Robo, cost, rest this unit, energy charge 1, and then choose one grade 2 or less Dimensional Robo from your drop zone and put it to Soul. But if it was put to the Order Zone this turn, choose one from your deck instead. And of course, shuffle your deck if you do that. This will be explained later, especially when you're searching it off during your grade 1. But the second skill is Act Order Zone. If your Vanguard is Dimensional Robo, cost Energy Blast 2, rest this card, choose one of your grade 2 or less Dimensional Robos from your soul, and call it to rearguard. And that's how you get called by abilities. And I like the idea that this is the base where basically the crew comes in and gets launched. Of course, it only works with Dimensional Robo, so you can't use the B heroes directly with it, but of course B heroes do support the base, so there is, once again, synergy with it. In which we go to Dimensional Robo Dimariner, which is a grade 1 with key power, and the skill is auto when discarded from hand during your turn, you may put this card to soul, aka discard for a ride deck, and putting it to soul is going to be very important for the next card. But the second skill is auto when placed on rearguard from soul by the card ability. If you have at least a grade 3 Daiyusha, into the end turn, this card gives us 2k power and your opponent cannot intercept. Yes, that little guard restrict can be a little nasty, but even stopping a little intercept doesn't really do much, but you mainly run this because it's Dimensional Robo. And it's going to be an important part for the next combo card, which is Die Battles, which is a grade 1 with 8k power, and the skill is acts once per turn. If your Vanguard is Dai Dragon and your opponent's Vanguard is at least grade 2 and your soul also has the Daiyusha, Dailiner, and Dimariner, cost, put a card from your hand into your soul, choose up to one Dimensional Robo Daiyusha from your ride deck and ride as stand. Yes, superior riding while your opponent's at grade 2. And that's the idea of the base order. You're supposed to basically set this whole entire combo piece up where you basically have all the Dimensional Robo parts in soul when you're at grade 2 Dragon, so you can just pass your opponent to grade 3. And even then, you technically still want to play this skill because you want to put those Dimension Robo parts in soul because you want to call them in soul. so you can get some extra skills. But anyway, second skill, auto. When placed on rearguard from soul by card ability, if you have at least a grade 3 Daiyusha, and your opponent's Vanguard is at least grade 3, the original crit of your Vanguard becomes 2 until the end turn. Now this one's going to be pretty strong because, of course, being Dimension Police, it's known for gaining some extra crits, and this is just a way to do so, because Daiyusha itself doesn't get itself some extra crits. And combining with all the extra power that Daiyusha is going to be getting, all the add-up abilities to Daiyusha might be very powerful. But you mainly use this for the superior ride, in which we finally go to the grade 3 with 13k power himself, Super Dimensional Daiyusha, which has the skill Auto Vanguard. Once per turn, when this card attacks, cost count +1, draw a card. If your opponent has at least a grade 3 Vanguard, choose any number of units that are dimensional robos with different names, and they get +5k power in the end turn. The base launches everything, so you should ideally be able to get a bunch of dimensional robos to your field, especially some recent support that can call from soul. In which the second skill is Auto Vanguard. Once per turn, at the end of the battle that this card attacked costs, put a card from your hand to soul, which is going to help your dimension robos, stand this unit, and drive -2 in the end turn. But if your bind zone does not have a Daiyusha, and you persona ride it this turn, you can cost bind Daiyusha from soul and drive +1 in the end turn. In technicality, this extra drive is only once per game, but if you can actually remove that Daiyusha from the bind zone and just re-put the Daiyusha back to soul, you can actually do this quite often. But right now I can't really think of a way to do that, at least removing the Daiyusha from the bind zone, but this is overall pretty good. Mass power for all your dimension robos, aka all your parts, and basically a restanding Vanguard, which makes this card does not feel like regular Daiyusha, since regular Daiyusha is known for reaching the power limit, so he could go supercharged with a crit. So I'm just surprised that they decided to change this up completely into a restand. I mean, in a way, yes, it is better off because at least that as a standalone grade 3, this is actually pretty decent compared to having like a regular Daiyusha from its old ways where it gets a certain amount of power just to be into an extra crit. And in a way, this restand part is kind of just basically Laurel. But personally, I don't really like this huge change, especially when they probably could have just used Great Daiyusha as the finisher, which they did not make. But funny enough, in Premium, you can technically do a triple attack Vanguard. With this and Great Daiyusha, of course the superior ride engine doesn't work in Premium, but it is doable. And finally, to the last support card, Super Dimensional Robo Dai Lady. Grade 2, 10k power, and the skill is Auto. When placed on rearguard, if your Vanguard is Dimensional Robo, cost count +1, search your deck for one base card, reveal it, and put it to your hand, and of course shuffle your deck. The nice part is that you can just literally search your base anywhere from your deck, which, if you have multiple bases, it's going to be very helpful. But the second skill is Auto Rearguard. When this card attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, if your order zone has at least 2 bases, plus 10k into the end of that battle. So this basically searches your second base, so this second skill is pretty much guaranteed active. And being a 20k beater on its own is pretty decent. It's just too bad that your Vanguard has to be Dimension Robo, because it would have been nice if you can run this in B Heroes to search up your base as well. Yes, B Heroes has more ways to search up bases now, but I still find it funny that you can still use B Hero stuff to interact with these cards. And finally, next week we got the new Stokea ride line. So that's it for the new reveals of the Dimension Robo ride line. What do you guys think of it? Overall, pretty cool. Nice to see Dimensional Robos back, except missing Great Daiyusha since we got all the Dimensional Robo parts, but for some reason no Great Daiyusha, and it would have been cool if the gattai function actually happened, but unfortunately it didn't, so we got Super Dimensional Robo Daiyusha, which is not too bad on a standalone, especially the huge big change from the original counterpart, where it's basically buff him up to the point where he can supercharge with a crit. Probably doesn't work nowadays, but I have a little bit of a mixed feeling about this huge change because I really think Great Daiyusha should have been the finisher, aka perform that gattai and then do that restand, rather than using Super Dimensional Robo Daiyusha for that. But still, overall pretty cool, and we still technically got the gattai function out of another combo piece. But on that, that's it for this, and see y'all next time.